Fat loss is not just about calories, your hormones, or about the effort that you're putting in. It's a lot about what your gut. So, what your gut extracts, what signals the microbes are sending, how inflamed your system is, how motivated you feel to move, and how your fat cells behave. So, two people can be eating the exact same meal. One is storing fat, one is not. And the difference is often your microbe. So, what is in your gut? So, what is in your gut actually changes how your calories are absorbed. Now, calories on a label are not calories that are actually absorbed into your body. And so, most weight loss advice assumes that calories go into the mouth, calories get absorbed, and then calories get either burned or they get stored. But there is a massive missing step in the middle here, and that is your gut bacteria, which is actually deciding how much energy you are going to extract from that food. And so, when researchers started really comparing the gut microbiomes of lean and obese individuals, they found that there was something very consistent across these studies. So, people with obesity tended to have a lower microbial diversity, and they had this different balance in the bacteria that were really good at extracting energy from food. So, researchers took the gut microbiome microbes from humans that were holding on to extra weight, and they actually moved them into mice. And they found that the mice gained fat. Same calories as other mice, same food intake, but they were gaining more weight. So then they did the reverse thing. They took the lean microbes and put that into other mice, and those mice stayed lean. So what does this actually mean in real life? It means that two people can eat the exact same meals, and one person is going to, their gut can squeeze more usable energy out of that food. Not because their metabolism is broken, but because their microbes are just more efficient, almost too efficient. So imagine an apple, it's like 120 calories. Depending on the microbes in your gut, you might have someone that absorbs all, let's say, 80 calories of that apple. Then you might have someone else that's actually absorbing 150 calories from that apple. Not because the apple is any different, but the microbes change. Now, this doesn't mean that calories don't matter, right? We know that they do. It just means that the caloric math is often really incomplete because the numbers on a label assume that everyone has the same gut, and there's no such thing as the average gut, or people's ability to extract calories is the exact same. Some guts are better at stealing fuel. And here's the next thing. It's not just about how many calories are absorbed. It's about what your gut produces after it eats. And that's where these short chain fatty acids come in. So once your gut bacteria decides how much energy it's going to extract from that food, how many calories it's going to take from that apple, the next question is, what do they do with it? Because microbes don't just digest food and, disappear. They're going to produce these chemical messengers, and they're going to directly affect how your body handles fat. So when we have a gut bacteria fermenting fiber, they're going to create short chain fatty acids, and they're acting like these text messages sent from your gut to your liver, your muscles, your fat tissue, your brain. Now, we have seen in research that higher short chain fatty acid production is associated with better insulin sensitivity. You're going to have higher rates of fat oxidation, so your ability to burn fat. You're going to have improved appetite regulation, lower inflammation in those fat tissues. So obviously helping a lot. This combination matters because insulin sensitivity is going to determine whether energy gets stored or energy gets burned. Now, this is also where that conversation about GLP-1s enter the picture, because when we have short chain fatty acids, they're going to stimulate specialized cells in the gut to release GLP-1s, PYYs, and these are the same hormones that some medications that become very popular are designed to mimic. But your gut can produce them naturally through this fermentation process. Now, there is one short chain fatty acid that is worth highlighting. It's called butyrate. Now, it does several things at once. So it's going to improve your mitochondrial efficiency. It's going to strengthen your gut barrier, reducing metabolic inflammation, improving insulin responsiveness. And this is the exact combination that we need for fat loss to become super efficient and to keep it going. Now, with this, more not always better because not all short chain fatty acids act the same way. So, in certain situations, when we have excessive acetate production, that's actually going to support fat storage. So, the goal here isn't to flood our system, especially not flooding it with fiber. The goal is balance. The diversity of microbes is going to create the balance of all these metabolites. This is why your fiber quantity alone doesn't necessarily guarantee you're going to lose weight. It's not just about eating fiber, it's about what your gut does with the fiber. Again, two people can eat the same high fiber diet, and one can produce more beneficial metabolites and one doesn't. And we'll get into things that we want to make sure that we're implementing so that our gut is supporting our fat loss as best as possible. So, short chain fatty acids are one of the main ways your gut tells your body whether to store energy or to spend it. Now, another thing with our gut that really makes fat loss stall is when your gut barrier starts breaking down. Because once we have inflammation entering the picture, the rules change. Now, this is when we can really stop blaming ourselves because if there's a specific mechanism that can block fat loss, even when calories are controlled and has nothing to do with effort, this is inflammation. It's called the metabolic endotoxemia. So, what does that really mean? Your gut lining is supposed to act like a filter. It lets nutrients through and it keeps inflammatory particles and bacteria out of your bloodstream. But when that barrier weakens, or you're getting fragments of certain bacteria leaking through, one of the big one is a lipopolysaccharide, or we call it LPS. And it doesn't necessarily make you sick overnight. You're not going to wake up bloated, not feeling good. It creates this very quiet, almost low grade inflammation in the body. So, why does this matter for fat loss? Because when we have low grade inflammation, this changes how your body handles energy. It makes your cells less responsive to insulin. And when your cells become less resistant, and when they become insulin resistant, fat loss slows down. Not because you're eating too much, not because you're not putting in enough effort, but the stored fat becomes harder to access. Now, this isn't some random theory. We've got so much research showing that when we have increased LPS in the body, it causes insulin resistance even without overeating, right? Or eating a lot of processed sugary foods. The researchers have literally infused small amounts of LPS and blood sugar control worsened. Fat metabolism declined, even if nothing else has changed. So this is that reassurance that we often need that you can be in a caloric deficit and still be metabolically blocked from burning fat. And it's all because inflammation changes the rules. Now, a lot of popular diets will reduce calories, but they ignore gut integrity, low fiber, they're highly processed, they're stressful to maintain, and over time, the gut barrier weakens further, which means inflammation is going to rise, and that's going to slow down your fat loss. So, if your weight loss has felt stalled despite consistency, if you feel puffy, inflamed, resistant, if maybe the things that you used to do don't work, it may not be about even changing your diet or eating less, it's repairing that gut barrier. Now, I also want to talk about motivation here because a lot of women carry a lot of guilt around this. They think that they're lazy or they're not disciplined. They've had doctors tell them that they're lazy, something is wrong with them. But motivation is not just psychological, it's what's going on in your body, and your gut is playing such a big role in how much motivation you feel. So, your gut is wired directly through your brain, through your vagus nerve. So signals from your gut reach the brain, the region of the brain that's involved in reward, drive, your effort. And that is being altered by the gut bacteria. So, gut bacteria can dramatically change your willingness to move, to stay with a plan, to wake up and make certain choices. Dopamine isn't just about pleasure, it's about drive. It's what makes this effort feel worth it. When you're passing by the donuts and saying, no, I'm not going to do that today, that's a lot of that gut microbes calling the shots here. So our gut-derived metabolites influence how long dopamine stays active during exertion. And so when that signaling is impaired, then you're going to have exercise feeling a lot harder than it should. You're not going to want to go to the class. You're going to feel more compelled to eat the foods that you know you probably shouldn't. You're going to avoid the walk. You're not going to make the decisions that you know you need to make for yourself. And then you feel really guilty about that. You think that you're not doing enough. You think that you're lazy, but it's all being influenced by the gut. The gut influences motivation through this signaling. So here's where that connects to food. So if we've got chronic gut inflammation, that's associated with a reduced reward, which means these normal activities feel less rewarding. You are going to gravitate towards foods that feel a little bit more compelling, sugar, things that you know you're not supposed to have. This is that altered reward processing that's happening. So if you are noticing that movement feels way too hard, if food feels louder than it should, if your motivation is dropping very quickly, it's not your personality, it may be that gut brain signaling that's creating an issue here. So now let's connect this to appetite, to cravings, and GLP-1, the hot word, because this is where gut and fat loss become really impossible to separate. So with appetite, that constant mental chatter about food, when you're constantly thinking about the next meal, what you're going to eat, feeling pulled towards snacks, even when you've already eaten, that experience has a name and we call it food noise. And your gut plays a massive role in how loud, how intense that noise is. So, GLP-1 is a hormone produced in the gut. And it's telling your brain, okay, we're satisfied. It helps regulate blood sugar and it slows gastric emptying. And there's certain medications that work by mimicking this hormone. So it's starting in our gut. And there's certain gut bacteria that stimulate GLP-1 release by producing short-chain fatty acids and other metabolites. When we have higher microbial diversity, so lots of microbes in the gut, then these specific microbes are stronger GLP-1 signals. And there are certain microbes that we have that when we have higher levels with them, they're better at better insulin sensitivity, lowering inflammation, improving that gut barrier integrity, and then ultimately lowering our body fat. So when this GLP-1 signaling improves, our appetite quiets and we can get rid of the food the food noise that tends to dominate our thoughts. Eating feels calmer, it feels more controlled. We're not as controlled by when we think we need to be eating or going towards those snacks. And then, of course, your fat loss is going to be easier to sustain. Now, another topic I wanted to bring up today is weight loss itself. So, when you're losing weight, it can actually change what's happening in your gut and not always in a good way. So, weight loss can often backfire later if you don't deal with the integrity and the microbes in your gut. So, we hear this a lot. I lost weight, but then everything fell apart. I felt more tired. My digestion worsened. I got worse cravings. My cravings intensified. And then over time, the weight crept back in and now it's even harder to lose. So this is a very common thing we see when your protocols aren't supporting your gut and your gut lining. When we have microbial diversity, that often drops when we're dieting. And as that happens, we notice that we actually get poor metabolic outcomes. And so eventually the weight is going to start increasing again. So we go on the diet, the microbes in the gut start dropping, the diversity starts dropping, energy extraction becomes more efficient. So now we're pulling in more calories from the food. Now you're getting hunger signaling increases, more cravings, more food noise. And then fat storage pathways start ramping up. So the weight regain is often a microbiome problem, not a rebound eating problem. And how frustrating is that to put in all this effort, to do all this work to lose this weight, and then your system starts changing, and now your body is more prone to pulling it back in. You could be eating the same amount of calories, but now your body is more efficient at extracting those calories. So you're still eating the same amount, but now you're pulling in more. Frustrating, but this is what happens when we don't really focus on our microbiome. Now, things that can affect this a lot, antibiotics and midlife hormonal shifts. Women, often into their late 30s, 40s, say everything was great until this turning point. Now, antibiotics, they save life, right? We are so grateful for them, but they also change the gut in lasting ways. So, microbial diversity can often take months or years to recover. And if we have repeated exposure to antibiotics, that means even if you're eating really well, you're still dealing with a lot of the damage that can happen if you had to take antibiotics, you didn't do the work to replenish and heal the gut. And then if you had to take multiple rounds of antibiotics or really heavy dose of them, then this can have, again, lasting effects. We're talking months, we're talking years if you're not really focusing on the gut health. Now, the other thing that creates a big shift is midlife shifts. So any kind of hormonal transition will reshape the microbiome. Estrogen strongly influences microbial diversity. And as estrogen declines, gut permeability risk increases. So the gut becomes more permeable, the gut barrier starts allowing things in it a little bit more, and then that allows the visceral fat storage to become easier. So this is why we see so often women into late 30s, 40s, fat loss feels way harder. There's way more effort they feel like they're putting in. It's the hormones, not just the hormones, but it's the hormones plus the microbes, and then we have the added effect of inflammation. So it's a triple threat, makes everything feel harder. Now, this also explains why there's no single diet that works for everyone. Low carb, low fat, Mediterranean, plant-based, they all can work, but they all can fail because your baseline microbiome, that's going to predict your response, how well you respond to these fat loss strategies. All right, so just to summarize everything, we're going to zoom out here. And first of all, with that understanding that fat loss isn't just about eating less, as I've been saying for the last 10 years. It's not just about moving more. A lot of it has to do with how much energy your gut extracts and what signals your microbes are sending, how inflamed your system is, and how your fat cells are actually behaving. And this is going to dictate a lot, and even how motivated you feel to do certain tasks, whether it's exercising, avoiding certain foods, making the healthier changes. So when that external system, when the microbiome favors fat storage, everything's going to feel a lot harder. It's going to feel a lot more demanding. So when we can make that shift and support the microbiome and get those microbes properly firing, then we're able to lose weight. It stops feeling so hard and it just becomes a natural byproduct. So some things that we can start doing today: adding a fermented food daily, just a small amount, sauerkraut, kimchi, yogurt, kombucha, starting with 1 to 2 tablespoons a day. Now remember, more is not better. Consistency is, and then rotating can be a really good idea. I think also rotating vegetables is amazing strategy. So aiming for like 20 different plant foods per week, but keeping that diversity in your vegetables are going to drive better microbial signaling. And then we also want to make sure we're stopping aggressive calorie counting, because when we have chronic restriction, this is going to worsen your gut permeability. So if weight loss has stalled, eating less will often make it worse, not better. And then, of course, we want to reduce ultra processed foods like protein bars, low calorie snacks. When we got sugar alcohols, these disrupt our gut barrier, even if calories are pretty low. So thank you so much for tuning in today. Hope that this was wildly helpful. As usual, if you're looking for more help and support, if you know your gut, your hormones, the stress response is all influencing your ability to lose weight, I will leave an option to book a free call with the team to see if we can help you start seeing some results.